Hello and welcome to the Paula's Place podcast, where today I'm here with Don Goewey. Don, you're in Berkeley, California.
Yes,
Welcome. Yeah, welcome.
thank you.
Yeah, lovely to have you. I was introduced to you by a dear friend of ours, Kathy Harris, who was attending a talk you gave to launch a new series that you have on Insight Timer and your new book, The Grandeur Within, The Art and Science of Awakening. And I've had the pleasure to read part one of the manuscript, and we'll talk about that soon. But Insight Timer, is it a course that you're offering? I haven't had a chance to have a look.
Yeah. Well, first of all, on the book, The Grandeur Within, um, it is in progress. It's not published yet. That's why
Yes.
you're working. That's why I sent you the manuscript. I'm still almost there, almost finished. Um, that's one of those things, you know. Somebody once asked Hemingway, "What's the most important thing about writing a book?" And he said, "Finishing it." It's
Well, I can't wait till you do because it's great. It's yeah. Uh,
uh, but as far as Insight Timer goes, years ago, how long ago was that? I guess it was about 8 years ago. They invited me to give a course based on another book I wrote called The End of Stress. And they were particularly interested in the fact that this book was bringing together science, psychology, neuroscience, and spirituality together because the truth is, in the last 15 years, they've kind of converged. It's sort of like all roads have met and they're at this intersection. And so, um, this book I wrote, two books rather, Mystic Cool and The End of Stress, were kind of the first to identify that because it was coming. My background has been in psychology and it has been in, you know, attitudinal healing, which is a practical spirituality based on A Course in Miracles. And so I was in kind of an ideal place. And so I just investigated all that neuroscience. And so Insight Timer was being approached by corporations who wanted to bring some spirituality into those godforsaken places that they sometimes turn into those stressful places. And so they asked me to do it. And so I did this course, and it's called The Science of Ending Stress. And to my surprise, it's very successful. 20,000 people took it.
Yeah, yeah. Now,
We're
Don, we
like,
were coming together today and it's just been so beautiful listening to everything you've shared, but um, a little bit about attitudinal healing too. You spoke of Jerry in your book too, and the close relationship that you had. And was it 12 years you were the director of the Center for Attitudinal Healing? And
yes, that's correct.
yeah, yeah, okay. And yeah, can you tell us anything, a little bit about what that involved of working at the
Sure.
center? And you did mention a story in your book about sitting in a boardroom meeting.
Oh,
And
yeah, Jerry.
it was quite funny.
Yeah,
Don't know if
quite a
you want to share
contrast. Um, the well, the Center for Attitudinal Healing was started by Jerry Jampolsky, the author of Love is Letting Go of Fear,
that.
which was a huge international bestseller and
Yeah.
changed a lot of people's lives. Incredible book,
Mm.
and by an incredible person, who wasn't perfect. I mean, like so many people, he was something of a contradiction, but uh, but a beautiful contradiction.
Yeah.
And so Jerry uh, started the Center for Attitudinal Healing after having read A Course in Miracles,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
he was quite dyslexic,
Yes.
and like when I'd have to sit with Jerry and go over the center's budget, it was really difficult because he had a hard time with
Yeah.
the numbers, but it was quite a gift because because of his dyslexia, he had to
Yeah.
take something as complex as A Course in Miracles, which can get very complex,
Yes.
Being a psychiatrist, he could see in the complexity how rich it was and how
Yes.
true to form it was in defining the suffering of a human being, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but he needed to break it down into
Mm.
terms that his dyslexia could implement, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
what he did, he wrote it on little cards, something
Uh,
that the course would say. I think we all do that with the Course in
yeah.
Miracles.
Yeah. I do
And then
that.
eventually, Bill Thetford, and he sat down with his cards. Bill Thetford
Mhm.
was the one who transcribed A Course in Miracles
Mhm.
for Helen Schuckman, who was channeling it, right? And
Yeah.
so Bill sat down with Jerry, and they came up with his book, Love is Letting Go of Fear,
Yeah.
which really simplified it. And then Jerry left his practice. He was a child psychiatrist, very
Mhm.
successful one. He
Yeah.
left it and started the center. And he the center was based on 12 principles that he
Mhm.
extracted from A Course in Miracles. The first one being love is the essence of our being. Yeah,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
which is what the first part of the grandeur within is about.
Yeah.
That there's now proof that love is the essence of our being, right?
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
blocked from it. And
Yeah.
it had other principles there
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
that are where you can go to Attitudinal Healing International website and get those principles. They're
Mhm.
12 and they're to live by. So Jerry
Yeah.
started at the center in Tiburon. He started with children who were dying
Mhm.
to help them bring this shift in attitude
Yeah.
from being fearful to love. Love is
Yeah.
letting go of fear, is a
Yeah.
fundamental principle that the center was founded on. And
Yeah.
he did that in groups. And it
Yes.
was extraordinary the what happened in those groups with those children. And in fact, the American uh, program 60 Minutes, which has a huge
Mm.
audience, enormous audience,
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
and filmed the
Yeah.
center and the groups.
Uh,
And then the parents of the children were seeing the attitudinal change in their children and dealing with their illness. And the children were actually kind of becoming the caregivers to the parents,
yeah.
who were
Yeah.
fearful, and how to
Yes.
let go of their fear and to trust more. And so the parents went to Jerry and said, "We need a group for us."
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
started a group for them. And then that expanded into groups for adults who were
Mhm.
facing life-threatening illnesses. And that group expanded into the caregivers that were grieving over the
Yeah.
potential loss or who experienced the loss of a loved one.
Yeah.
And it just proliferated like that. And eventually the center was called into dealing with social problems, uh,
Mhm.
problems in uh, ghettos,
Yeah.
problems with
Yeah.
Native people, Native
Mm.
Americans, First Nation people of
Mm.
Canada,
Yeah.
um, of the pain that they went through, of
Yeah.
the false identities that they had stamped into their
Mm.
into their hearts.
Yeah.
Um, and we were even contracted by the U.S. State Department under Bill Clinton's administration to go into Croatia and Bosnia
Mm.
and do work in the refugee
Huh.
camps with
Mhm.
people,
Yes.
teaching
Wow.
teaching people. The center used a peer support approach.
Mm.
What we
Mhm.
did is we trained people in a peer support model of how
Yes.
to
Yeah.
facilitate a group in which
Yeah.
people were
Yeah.
bringing in their fear. And
And
so
which we're
what it
still
was,
doing today too. We're part
yes,
of that team. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Great.
it had a worldwide impact.
Yeah.
And so what
Yeah.
it was like at the center was the best way I can describe it is that when I would facilitate one of the support groups, the life-threatening support group, like I facilitated an AIDS group during
Mm.
the height of the AIDS epidemic
Mm.
in San Francisco, when every single member of it was a very large group, and every single member of that
Mm.
group over a period of 2 years had died. And
Yeah.
so
Wow.
it was a journey that all those
Yeah.
men were making, and that I had the privilege of witnessing them
Mm.
make. And what would happen is that I would want I was a director, so I'd be really busy in my office, running the numbers, making sure that we're we were operating properly, raising the money we needed. And then at the end of the day, I'd come out and head for the group
Yeah.
that I was going to facilitate, and I would watch the people coming into the center, uh,
Yeah.
either people who were grieving the loss of a loved one, people who were dealing with a life-threatening illness, and
Mm.
you could see the weariness on
Yeah.
their faces from that day. Who knows what medical procedure they had undergone that day, what bad news they got that day, what heaviness they carried that
Yeah.
day, you know, in
Yeah.
trying be the caregiver to
Yeah.
somebody who's in distress. And they would come
Yeah.
into the group, and in the group we would read the 12 principles. And
Mm.
then there was no cross talking, but one at a time, person would share, and they would share about um, what their process was in that day, and what their process was relative to moving from fear to love and trust.
Mm.
And it was illuminating everything. Their personal stories was illuminating to everybody in the group. And you
Yeah.
can imagine that you get a group of 12 to 20 people sharing in this way,
Mm.
and that there's a catharsis that emerges. And
Yeah.
what I would visibly see is a light would kind of emerge in the room, a really soft
Wow.
white light. We would create this aura of light from this. It
Mm.
always amazed me. And I would remember
Yeah.
it. I would always notice, like, oh, there's the light again, you know? And
Wow.
when these people got up and left at the end of the group, they were arm in arm. They were
Yeah.
cheerful. They were smiling, you know, they were loving. They were
Mm.
happy. They left
Yeah.
completely different than they came
Yeah.
in. And it was like that
Yes.
week after week. And we would have people that would come to visit the center. The center was this beautiful building,
Yeah.
this old building, but we had remodeled, and it was lovely.
Yeah.
There's this lovely woman who she was wealthy. She had a lot of resources. And when we were remodeling this building, she decorated it, and she went out and got people to donate wonderful chairs and all
Yeah.
this kind of thing. And it turned out she created this masterful place for
Yeah.
people to come from in out of the cold. And so, um, people would come from all over the world to visit.
Yeah.
They'd read Jerry's book, or
Yeah.
Jerry had visited their country and they were turned
Mm.
on by his talk, and they'd come to visit. And invariably they would come in, and if I had happened to be at towards the front door talking to somebody, I would see them come in and they would be kind of starstruck. And I would ask them in the beginning,
Yeah.
what's going on with you? And they would say, there's this beautiful light in here,
Oh,
I
really?
and I'd
Oh.
turn and look, and I would go, God, you're right. I I was too busy and caught up in my busyness. I wasn't
Yes, yeah,
seeing it.
yeah,
And they were really good teachers to me, because I would in my business every now and then I would drop out and I go, kind of just let's just merge with this light that's in here, and I would see it and feel it.
yeah,
Um, and that's what the center was all about. And then, as far as the
yeah,
story with Jerry goes, he and I we had to work together. We had do a lot of planning together. We had to work things out together. He became a mentor to me,
yeah,
and I had this huge authority complex caused by, which I outlined
yeah.
I mean, anybody that try and Jerry could be very direct,
Mhm.
which I could interpret as criticism, which
Yeah,
then
yeah,
evoked my stepfather, and
yeah.
so we could get into, I would tussle with him about that. He would be very patient with me, but one time, we were in this meeting, and there were centers all over the world. They called us the mother center. And so we had a collection of the directors from all over the world, and we were at this meeting in Texas, and we were
Mhm.
talking about how to further the work that we were doing. And they'd hired this strategic planner,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was kind of arrogant in those days, I think. I didn't like strategic planning. I liked intuitive planning. And
Yeah.
they were, strategic planning. They moved methodically, and they put sheets up on the walls, and, And I had been drinking a lot of coffee, and I was becoming I was acting like, an adolescent boy in an all boys school, acting like an idiot,
Yeah.
and making jokes that were rather sarcastic about the
Yeah.
process,
Yeah. Yeah.
and generally being a nuisance, I think. And Jerry came, so like I'm sitting facing the board,
Yeah.
the whiteboard where all the stuff's up. Jerry's behind me, facing that way, and he comes around and he puts his hand on my shoulder. And every time Jerry did that, something would radiate from the
Wow.
which would quiet me, and it did kind of quiet me. And he whispered into me, he said, "I want to change seats with you." And so I said, "Okay." And so I got up and went and sat in his seat, and he came and sat in mine. And as soon as I sat in his seat, I was enveloped in this aura of
Mm.
peace. I mean, it was just palpable. I
Yeah.
remember thinking that, my God, Jerry really is the real deal.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
I was convinced of it up until
Yeah.
that point, that he
Wow.
really is, uh, he's really
Mm.
in this state
Yeah.
that he talks about. He's achieving
Mm.
it, attaining it, returning to it, really.
Yeah.
And I was kind of fine. And suddenly I'm looking at everything that everybody's doing, and it's making sense, and I'm contributing,
Yeah.
constructively to it. And about 10 minutes later, Jerry turns around and he's agitated because he's been sitting,
Sitting in your seat.
yeah, he's been sitting in
Oh
my
no.
stressful vibe. And he goes, "I want my seat back." And I said, "No way, baby."
Oh, isn't that funny?
And it
Yeah.
became a
Yeah.
joke for us. But
That's yeah, one to
but
remember.
yes.
Don, what would you say to someone who is quite keen to take attitudinal healing into the workplace or into the school, or just starting a group up for themselves? What advice would you give them?
To do it.
Do it, yeah.
Yeah.
How?
And
That's, I
there,
guess, is the big question.
so I did it. I did it for a number of years. I still
Okay.
do it
Mm,
occasionally.
mm,
And at the center, what we did is we created this think tank in which we began to see that this neuroscience and psychology and the practical
mm.
spirituality that had been cultivated at the center was merged,
Yes.
and that we could bring it into an environment like the workplace and make sense to people of the kind of shift that's possible
Yeah.
for people, so that their workplace isn't so riddled with stress.
Yes. Yeah.
And part of it is uh, helping people understand that stress is fear. You don't
Mm,
have a stress reaction unless some form of fear is present, and the greater part of the fear that's activating stress reactions is mind-made. We
yeah.
misperceive a threat that and isn't necessarily there,
Yeah.
and may not even be there, period, or may not be there to the degree that we're exaggerating about it. That
Yes.
and so we developed this program,
Mm,
and then took it out into the world,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
set up a separate consulting firm free of the center, and
Yeah.
went out into the world and began presenting this program, which essentially is uh, the program that's written up in my book, the End of Stress.
Yeah.
And it did a 10-part program, excuse me, an 8-part program.
Uh-huh.
And I thought when I went out into the world that we were going to run into a whole lot of resistance,
Yeah.
particularly to the spiritual part of the
Hmm.
program.
Mm.
And so I kept that to not a minimum, but I kept it bite size, so I didn't
Yes.
overwhelm people.
Yeah.
And what I found is that quickly people wanted to move into the spiritual part of it,
Mm. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that people that I'd misjudged people. I had kind of thought that people, since they're out there in the corporate room, their world, rather, they're going to be aggressive, they're going to be competitive, they're going to see
Yeah.
this as nonsense. And there were some
Mm.
people who did, but by and large, no, people responded immediately and
Yeah.
and and, and loved it. I
Wow.
remember
Yeah.
we went into this one huge law firm, one of the biggest law firms in Silicon Valley, that
Hmm.
is a law firms to companies like Apple and Microsoft and Cisco Systems,
Yeah.
and we were going to be training lawyers, and I thought lawyers are tough. They're
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
they are very skeptical. They're
Yeah.
trained to be skeptical.
Yeah.
A good
Yeah.
lawyer has skepticism about the facts and stuff. And the training department head at this big law firm said, uh, I don't know how far you're going to go. People bail out on programs like these pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So we've had and I don't even know how many people are going to sign up, if there'll be enough to sign up to even go with
Mm.
it. And
Yeah.
so I said, well, okay, let's see where it goes. And we had a full class. I had to change the room to a bigger room,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
um, only 3 or 4 people dropped out. They stuck
Gosh.
with it. They
Wow.
they wanted
Yeah. The
they wanted to
hunger.
hear this.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
wanted, and the CEO of the law firm, the head
Mm.
lawyer,
Yeah.
he really took to it, and
Yes.
he wanted it to be a part of the culture, and everybody
Yeah.
wanted it to be part of the culture.
Mm.
It's hard for it to infiltrate the culture. It takes doing it all the time.
Mm.
And so that, you go in and you do a workshop, and then for a while it's having an effect, and then out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
But anybody that thinks that corporations are not interested in this, I found it to be the opposite.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Wow.
just
So.
have to, but you just have to be able, if you're going to go out into a corporation and
Mhm.
do a training that
Yeah.
brings that brings spirituality to them, you have
Mm.
to be solid. You
Yeah.
have to put together a very good program, a very
Yeah.
well scripted program. You have to
Mhm.
deliver it well.
Yeah.
You have to do it in a way, otherwise you lose people
Yes.
confidence.
Yeah.
Corporate
Yeah.
people don't like things that don't make sense and are kind of messy and
Yeah.
disorganized. So
Yeah.
you really got to do your homework and create
Yeah.
something very professional. And that can
Yeah.
be hard for people who have it who aren't professionals in
Yes. Yeah.
consulting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So,
but
so getting a copy of The End of Stress is a good way to start. Have a read of
yeah,
that, and that could give people some ideas.
yes, they can codify from that book a
Yeah,
training program.
yeah, yeah. Great. Wow. Thank you. Don, have you got anything else you'd like to share just before we finish up today? Any other pearls? Any other words of wisdom for people listening?
Well, it's a delight talking to you.
Yeah, you too. It's been a delight listening to you. Just, yeah, I could keep going.
And I
Perhaps
hope
we should make a
our
series together.
yeah, I'd be up for that. And
Oh, me too.
I hope that the delight that we kind of created in the conversation um, is, is also what people listening to this will experience.
Yes, I
To
think
be
so.
how delightful it is to be in touch with yourself,
Yeah,
your true
yeah,
self. It's a
yeah,
delight,
yeah, it sure
and that's
is.
why awareness is a delight. Even though awareness is
Mm.
about getting in touch with things that aren't fun to get in touch with.
Yes,
It
yeah.
opens you up in a way so that when you just, I'll tell you one last story. That'd be a great way
Hmm.
to end this
Yeah,
because
great.
it illustrates the whole thing about awareness. So here I was well into practicing this process of awareness,
Hmm.
and which people can find by buying the book Awareness by Anthony DeMello. That's a very good book to buy.
Yeah, okay.
And halfway through the book, he gets into his awareness process. I've added
Hmm.
more to that process than Tony DeMello has in there, but
Hmm.
uh, so at any rate, I'm well into this process, right?
Yeah.
Um, and one day I'm walking down the hallway coming to my office, and things are going really well at this particular point. My book is selling,
Mhm.
the Amazon reviews are sounding lovely. The my uh, consulting work is growing.
Yeah.
Um, things are great with my wife and I. My children
Yeah.
and grandchildren are all doing well. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot to be grateful for.
Right. Yeah.
And so as I'm walking down the hallway, um, suddenly I get struck with this feeling of dread.
Mm.
It's like this cl toxic cloud descended on me,
Yeah.
and I'm in it,
Yeah.
and because I'm doing awareness, I don't push it away, I don't
Mm.
repress it, which uh, I I go and sit down in my office and I bring it up, and it felt awful, you
Yeah.
know. I could just feel it's constriction on my heart, you know.
Mm.
And I could feel that there behind it there was this feeling of grief,
Yeah.
and I could hear I could see the thoughts that accompany it, which is um, nothing good ever happens. Nothing good
Mm.
can be counted on. And
Yeah.
and then as I would think that, I would notice the dread and grief that it would give rise to. And it was
Mm.
obvious, the connection between the two.
Mm.
And then I just sat with it. I did the process. Um, I didn't say I'm in grief. I'm in
Yeah.
grief. I'd say grief is there, dread is
Yeah.
there. Just create that disidentification from it at the same time,
Yeah.
feeling it, letting it
Mm.
be, and went through the whole process all the way through. It passed.
Yeah.
Uh, Dropped me off in a place of choice where I could choose
Yeah.
just to let go of all of that. And
Mm.
then this is one of the things that happened with awareness. Awareness always, uh, at times, comes in sideways with understanding what's going on.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, it's not
Mm.
that you're reaching for understanding, but it comes up because you're
Yeah.
not trying to understand. The moment you try to understand, it gets in your head and it gets confused and you make a mess of it.
Yeah.
But it comes in sideways in my experiences. So the sideways thing that came in
Mhm.
was I suddenly saw my stepfather. And then
Mm.
I remembered you'll turn gold to shit. Well, the
Yeah.
gold of my present moment circumstances were wonderful, and I'm programmed to turn it into shit.
Mm.
And
Wow.
of course, how could that not produce a moment of dread? And
Yeah.
I realized in that moment that I had been going in and out of this process of dread
Mhm.
all my adult life and never
Wow.
recognizing it. It was unconsciously happening to me. And
Yeah.
and yet the root of it was obvious. I
Mm.
mean, in that
Mm.
moment of understanding, it was absolutely, how could it be otherwise?
Yeah.
And yet, when we've repressed something, nothing can be more invisible to us than something we repress. It turns
Yes.
invisible. We can't see it
Yeah. Yeah.
because we don't want to see it. Some part of us is afraid to see it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I let it go.
Mm.
And, and then the next time it came up, I
Yeah.
went and sat down to process it. But there really was more of a sense of distance, a natural
Yes.
sense of distance from it.
Uh-huh.
I could see there's that. I know, I understand what it's about. Um, I would even sometimes say, I forgive you, Jim. That was my stepfather's name. I forgive you, Jim.
Yeah.
I forgive
Yeah.
myself for how long it's taken to see all of this. I just forgive it all.
Yeah.
And I would relax. Or if it still made that ache in my heart, I just be with that for a moment. And
Yeah.
then each time it would come up, it
Yeah.
would have less and less valence until now it comes up. And I even sometimes laugh at it. It's sort of like the tragedy has become this comedy. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, that's
Mm.
that's a very hopeful story, right?
Yes. Very
It's
much
that
so.
we can't. I mean, that thing was
Yeah.
that thing of dread could ruin not only a happy moment, it,
Mm.
it, it would carry through the whole day and ruin the day. for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I thought afterwards that how many days did I ruin this way? You
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
the answer was obvious, a lot, many,
Yeah.
many,
Yeah.
many. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the happy news is not anymore.
Yeah.
No more.
Yeah.
No more
Yeah.
ruined days.
No.
Because
No.
if it comes up,
Yeah.
I intervene and
Yeah.
and intervene. I weaken the pattern, and each time I intervene, the
Yeah.
pattern's weaker and weaker until it has very little strength at all. It may still play because what gets programmed in your brain doesn't necessarily get erased. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
amygdala goes, well, what about you turning
Yes.
gold and you
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then but you've created a wiring around it that moves out of that quickly rather
Yeah.
than your amygdala moving into your prefrontal cortex, taking over your thoughts, and now you're caught in
Yeah.
this terrible rumination,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
believing it's all true
Yeah.
because it's got
Yeah.
all this emotional impact, right?
Yeah.
And you begin to
Yeah.
see that, and you get
Yeah.
liberated from it.
Yeah.
That's how you
Yeah.
get liberated from
Yeah.
it. But you got to do it,
Yeah.
and you got to in facing yourself. It can feel ominous, but
Mhm.
don't worry about it. It turns into delight.
Yeah.
Just
So
just
now
do it.
you can welcome it in and say, "Oh, here we go again," and
Yes.
yep, yep,
And if you
and
don't welcome it, just be
yeah,
present with not welcoming it,
yeah, yes,
and then move
yeah,
through it. And as you be present with not welcoming it, now suddenly you're allowing it.
yes,
You're
yeah,
okay, I can let it. As you don't resist yourself comes forward. It's like
yes,
that.
yeah, yeah. Oh, true. If you don't resist yourself, yourself comes forward. I love that,
Yeah, because it's
Don.
so
Oh,
blocked.
yes,
You
yeah,
get you
yeah,
get you get this
yeah,
fearful part of your brain, the amygdala, hijacking your intelligence,
yeah,
creating these stories that we live out and believe, um, and finally discovering through a simple process that they dissolve because you discover none of them are true.
yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
then what
yes,
naturally emerges because that obstruction has been mitigated, what naturally emerges is that, ah, this beautiful nature. Ah, this
yeah,
is nice. I
yeah.
like this place,
And this life, and yeah,
and
yeah.
this life. And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
and I'm smiling at
Yes.
people,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I'm more,
Mm.
and or when I do get stuck in it, and I use awareness, I'm more compassionate about
Yeah.
myself. I'm compassionate. How could I be otherwise? How could I not have this mess that
Yeah.
runs me sometimes,
Yes.
given the way
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
programmed, you
Childhood.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have
Exactly.
compassion for myself. And then when I have
Yeah.
compassion for myself and I see somebody else projecting their unhealed childhood trauma onto me,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
I can meet it with compassion
Compassion. Yeah.
because
Yes.
I understand it, brother. I understand
Yeah.
it, sister. I
Yeah.
understand. Believe me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
I would, I'm not, I'm, like one knee-jerk reaction from projecting my stuff on you, you know?
Yeah. That's so
And
true.
so, and you just receive the person and you notice that
Yeah.
person, because of compassion is a vibration. Because of that vibration, they come back to their breath a little
Yes. Yeah, 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 that's it. And that's a beautiful way to end, just that compassion is a vibration. So,
yeah,
yeah, put it out there.
it's a loving vibration.
Yeah,
Self-condemnation is a polar opposite
yes,
vibration.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
jarring.
true. Yes, yeah. Don Goey, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed this. And
Well, I got to thank
yeah,
Kathy for putting this together. It's a joy to meet you,
yeah,
and connect with you
exactly.
anytime you want.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. Yeah, you take care.
All right.